Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. And would you please just interact with me in the chat box section here? So on your Microsoft Teams app, you've got that tab where you can chat. So if you can just show any emoticon face there. I'm also sharing a screen. So if you can just comment with any emoticon face, a happy smile or anything there, just to indicate that you can hear me very well as you can see the screen. All right, we're going to continue with the class. First of all, let me introduce myself, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Fiso Mahlangu. I'm going to be taking over from the group that you were being lectured by Mr. Botas. So today we're going to talk about your project or your wheel project. So first of all, you need to ensure that you have registered for this module. So as I've indicated, I'm currently sharing the screen, but I assume you've already have this information so far. So if we, for example, look at your qualification, you'll see that you've got a new module in the second semester. So if you are not registered for the module, you need to ensure that you register. And this is only for those who are doing national, not the national diploma, just diploma. So the qualification code, let's quickly open it so that we can also be on the same page. So this is for this qualification, diploma in marketing, and your qualification code should be DPMK19. So this class as well as this learning project that I'm talking about only applies to those students. So if you are registered for national diploma and your qualification is different here, so it does not apply to you. So the module I'm talking about in this case, you'll be in your 4th year or 3rd year. You will see is this one, Wheel in Marketing, which is a block module. So to tell you a little bit more about the module, okay, Miss Alice, you say you didn't choose research for wheel project. Yeah, you still have to attend because I'm still gonna touch based on marketing. So I'm not sure if that answers your question. So the class session is not only about the wheel module. It will also be about research. So I hope that answers your question, Miss Alice. Feel free to unmute your mic if you have any questions so far. Because while I'm sharing the screen, I'm unable to see the chats this side on Microsoft Teams apps. So if you've registered for this module, you've got a project which relates to the content and the subject, which is marketing research, which we are focusing on today. So in this case, I would also encourage those who did not choose for marketing research to actually reconsider. Marketing research is the basic foundation of all your assignments. You're gonna need this information in order to complete your other assignments successfully. But in any case, let's continue here. So you will see the submission date. That's what the first thing we need to talk about. So you'll submit it on the 29th of October. So if you are registered for a module, it will appear on Brightspace. So if you go to your subjects on Brightspace, You will see there's already a lot of information posted there regarding the module, including the videos that you should attend. As part of the assessment marks, just take that into consideration, that it's compulsory, in other words. So this content is something that you should be familiar with so far, because you've been assessed on it and it was part of the first semester. So in terms of this assignment, you're just going to develop a research proposal. You're going to design a questionnaire, which is section B. You're going to collect secondary data, which was chapter 6, and then you're going to provide the research report, that is chapter 15. So at this point, we haven't covered it yet, but we should be able to cover that before you submit, or you can go through the textbook chapters as well as the guidelines. They are very, very clear on what to do there, but I'll take you through it. So this is an important page for every assignment. So use this marking rubric to guide you on what is required from you. So in other words, your research proposal, this is what will be assessed on. When we look at your questionnaire, we'll be looking at things such as you've got 10 questions that you developed there. All this information comes from the guidelines. So if you read the guidelines in detail, they actually guide you in terms of how you do this. For example, the first section A, developing a research proposal. Like I've said, you've done it in the previous assessment, but there is something that I also have to indicate or emphasize in this case. This will be on Brightspace here, especially marketing research as a subject. You should note that our learning outcome, or our overall learning outcome, which means what is the reason we do this subject, is for you to be able to develop a research proposal. So in terms of the research proposal, it will always be a part of your assessment, because the whole textbook basically is the research proposal. Is just each chapter is a specific section. So if you haven't done this before, you can do it with me. You need to have these research proposal guidelines with you every time you are actually using the material, you are trying to study, you are completing an assessment. So you should have that research proposal guideline. So let's quickly find it here. Should be semester 1. And we also post these extra class exercises. They were posted recently, so you need to also download those class exercises. They will help you a lot in terms of the assessment. Where is that research proposal guidelines? Let's quickly see here. Okay, the module that we use is this page, just to take into account as well. Okay, is the last step, recent research proposal notes and exercises. So you have to ensure that you always have this research proposal guidelines with you. So the first one is the framework. I'm also going to take you through this framework today of how far you are with the subject, as well as how it integrates with each and every chapter, including the assessment as well. So if you quickly open those guidelines, you will see you are familiar with them. And most of the time, you already have the discussion. You don't necessarily need to redo these discussions. you can just use them the way they are, because actually they were developed and in a specific manner, which shows an overall meaning of each and every aspect that we're talking about here. So most of the time we do see some students try to use their own weights there and there, but it's not recommended because at some stage it tends to lose the meaning. So make your job simple as well. Use the same discussions that are here. The differences will be just practical application. So you're gonna use the same guidelines that which are here to develop the research proposal for this project which you are doing. So first of all, it says read the case study in Annexure A and answer all questions. So if you go down in the assessment, you'll see there is a case study that is used across all the assessment, which is the project. It's about Rooibos premium tea Mavusana. You also need to watch this video. You can also just click quickly here on the link, and then you will see it takes you to YouTube. It's just a few minutes video whereby the interview was conducted with the founder of this premium Rooibos tea. So at your own time, you also need to do that. And then you'll understand the product better because he explains where you find these products and so on, as well as if you read the case study, some of the information or most of the information is already there. So when you develop that research proposal, you also need to think about the assessments that were conducted previously, how you develop a research proposal. For example, the objectives, you should know by now that whenever you develop a research objective, it should start with the weights 2. That's the structure we use in marketing research. Just keep in mind, there is some practicality that you need to take into account. So I'm going to illustrate here a bit, but it just should reflect. It's something that it should have been, it's covered so far. So for example, let's quickly say practical. Which in assessments. Okay, so whenever there is an assessment, first of all, if we talk about objectives, both of them, primary and research, should start with the weight 2, because you are penalized if they are not structured in that format. So that could be to determine, to examine, to find out, depending on the context of what you are dealing with. For example, in this case, you'll be dealing with things such as finding out current competitors. This information is already there, so you just have to structure it correctly. And then continuing here, you include the research methodology that you're gonna propose. Remember, this is your own research proposal. Whenever you write a research proposal, you are the one who's doing that research proposal. That's why you have your names in the beginning there. So you are the one who's gonna propose, whether it's qualitative or it's quantitative, depending on the nature of how you understood this project, as well as how you think it should be done. It will also be affected by these research objectives as well, whether they can be actually examined or they need to ask for to explore them and so on. And then question design section B, it guides you that you need to have a cover page. So I'm quickly going to reference a page for this. How do you, which information is needed in the cover page? So that's another important thing that we're going to add here. Just to add other few things here, which I see in the assessments as well. Whenever you have research questions, are careless mistakes, but they happen quite a lot. So I will always reference them. So research questions, they must always have a question mark. Sometimes you write research questions and there is no question mark and it's not a question. So it's important for such, it's don't be a victim of such careless mistake hypothesis. Most of you have mastered how you structure hypotheses, but there is still a few that are struggling with the alignment. So this one is in the textbook. They should always use the weights, start with the weight if is the if then statement. So we must see that integration between two variables. One variable, another variable there. For example, for your recent test, most of you were quite able to do that because I'm still as marking. That's another topic we're going to talk about, your marks for the recent assessment. So for example, if I use an example here, I've seen most of you saying if young adults or if students have social media, then the preferred site is Facebook or TikTok, and that was good that you are mastering research hypothesis. Okay, that's just quite few things that you should reflect on, and we make sure that we don't repeat the same mistakes in the next assessments. So let's come to what we were discussing about the questionnaire design. In terms of the questionnaire design, whenever you design a questionnaire, this could be also part of future assessment, so that it does not apply to the wheel module only. So questionnaire design, we talk about the first thing. Let's quickly reference what is needed. They say questionnaire cover page should include all requirements of the informed consent form. So I'm gonna take that and quickly reference that in page in the textbook itself. So when you design a questionnaire cover page, you just need to ensure that all those practical elements that we're gonna reference now are included. It's in the beginning of the chapter, so that will be chapter 2, and then at the end of chapter 2, so page 36. So let's quickly have that there. So you will see there on page 36, they talk about the informed consent form and they included the bullets there, things such as you should provide the explanation of benefits of research, you should provide the contact details of the researcher, so you include your contact details. So your cover page should include all those bullets there. That's how it's going to be assessed. And you also, to make your job easy, remember we've got this tool here called Google. A very useful tool for this era we're living in. So for example, you can just type the research questionnaire cover page. And then you'll see, especially in the images, if you search about using images, remember these images will take you to the various sites. So you can use any of those structures, for example, but the important aspect is that all the elements that are indicated in the textbook are included in all these cover letters. You'll see things such as contact details for the researcher, the benefits, whether the study is voluntary or not, and so on. And then the next step is to collect secondary data. So in this case, you already understand what is secondary data is information that actually already exists. So basically we provided you with guidelines. This is an important part. Conduct a literature review by searching journal articles on Google Scholar. So this, if you click on the link there, it takes you to that Google Scholar search engine. The difference about this and the normal Google is that here it only, whatever you search here, it's gonna provide you with articles which are accredited. Those articles are basically the journal articles only. So when you search here anyway, it's gonna be very easy for you to find those articles. So You only need 5 articles. You will see there. So you use your topic similar to the topic. So remember our topic, it should be in a research proposal there. Our topic is to determine consumer preferences and perception towards rooibos products. So if I can take that topic and we quickly search articles here regarding the same topic, you will see you've got that article, consumer perception, attitudes, and acceptance of new and traditional made products. The nice thing about these articles is that you can also find a questionnaire that was developed as well here, so it will be easy for you to look at how a questionnaire could be developed or what items should be developed in the questionnaire. So for those of you who are here using the Wi-Fi or EduRoom, you will see at some stage an article such as this one. I wanna just illustrate an example. An article such as this one, it might require me to pay, okay, let's say PDF. You can see in terms of access is denying me and is asking me the price to pay. So what I wanted to illustrate is that if you are using TUT Wi-Fi, it will give you access here automatically. So at the moment I'm using my own network. So if I logged in with the TUT Wi-Fi router, I was going to have access here. So if you are on campus connected to a network, it will be easy for you to download any article. But if you are at home, it's also possible to download the articles. That's why I said I went specifically to this one, because you don't see a link on the next site where it shows you the full article version. So any article with the link here, for example, PDF from here, it means that it's having open access. Then all these articles you can download. So for example, even including these ones, even if it doesn't say PDF. For example, if I click on this one, it's about food. You can see it already allowing me to open the full article. So you don't need to necessarily read the full article. You just need to read this part. Even if you don't need to download the article, you can read this part on the website. It tells you what the article is about, what method they used to collect the data, and what were the objectives, as well as what they were finding. So you just summarize that in a table as illustrated in the guidelines here. So we've already showed you one example in the guidelines as well as the reference of that guideline. So for example, if you look at this article, it was published by these authors. So using the same basically search criteria, we should be able to see that article is actually the first one. You can see consumer perception. So it's just an example of how you find that information. So once you find 5 articles from there, then you are done with that. And the research report is the last thing. This is whereby you must prepare professional presentation. This will also help you with the next part of the assessment marks, because all the research projects that you are doing have the oral presentation. So it guides you that it should be PowerPoint, 5 slides. It should include graphical illustration. So if you include something of a picture or a table or any figure there, that should be sufficient, and then you can talk about it. For example, you have already have a table here. So if you use Microsoft PowerPoint Excel, you can draw a nice figure about this table where you just illustrate the findings. And then you're gonna upload that presentation. And then you are done with the will assignment for marketing research. So if there are any questions regarding this project, please don't hesitate. You can unmute the mic, and then you can ask that any question that you have before we continue. All right, since you don't have any questions, I do have a question, ladies and gentlemen. How far are you with marketing research? To what chapter? If you can just unmute the mic and let me know. Anyone? So far, how many chapters have you covered? Okay, we're gonna continue from chapter 11. I'm gonna assume you have covered chapter 1 to chapter 10 in this case. Yes, Miss Alice?
Sir, I have a question, but not about the chapters, about our semester test 2 marks.
Okay.
Are those marks finalized? Because then I don't think I got the correct marks. Say, it's not possible to get such low percentages. Can you at least maybe go through the test again, the semester test 2, and see what happened? Because our marks are too low, sir, and which is something that has never happened before.
Okay, let's quickly go to Brightspace so that we are on the same page. So, logging in there, I think there is some form of misunderstanding regarding the marks, so it needed clarity. So thank you for actually asking that question. So if we come to the subject or the module, okay, and we go to grades. So you've got 6 assessments there: quiz 1, quiz 2, quiz 3, assignment 1, assignment 2, and assignment 3. So now, the last one that you wrote is this one, written assignment 2. So if I understand well, you're asking about this assessment. Am I correct? The one that you recently wrote?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what is happening here is that I'm still marking this group. So you will see this group, it's National Diploma Marketing Foundation. At the moment, I'm still marking this group. So it's not yet final for this group. And now in terms of, let's come to this group, Diploma Marketing. A1, it's Pretoria. So if we go to assessment 2, you will see that these marks, for example, sorry to open to use this as an example, but I'm just illustrating. you will see here it says 0, not auto-graded. So in other words, it's not marked yet. So at the moment, I'm still marking the other group. So as soon as I'm done with the other group, I'm gonna mark these assessments. So these marks that you see are for the multiple choice. So the multiple choice, remember, it was 10 questions. So when they release the marks, remember the other lecturers are done marking. So as soon as they are done, the marks were released. And then as soon as they release, they also release the multiple choice for your subject, for your particular assessment as well. So in other words, your marks are not yet updated. They are not final yet. So as soon as I'm done marking, probably by end of this week. So I was marking even today before this class. So by end of the week, your marks will be final, and then we can come back to this discussion. But at the moment, your marks are not final, to clarify.
Oh, thank you, sir. I was so scared that I got that presentation. Thank you, sir, for the clarity.
Yeah. What happened is that, remember, as soon as the other lectures were done marking, and then they released the marks for their students, so it also released the multiple choice. So all this that you see here is just multiple choice. So there's other 40 marks that I still need to mark because that one is marked manually. So it's not final yet. The marks for the groups that I'm marking, actually, I must say they are good, because the only problem that I saw is that most students did not have enough time regarding putting the answers, because it says no text entered or nothing was written as an answer. So where it was wrong answers, mostly it was because nothing was written, not that they were wrong answers. So I think once we finalize the mark, we can come back to this, but they are not final, just in conclusion. So thank you for that. So now let's move on to chapter 11. So you should at least have a textbook in front of you. I'm gonna quickly highlight, tell you the page numbers while I go through with you through the slides regarding chapter 11. So let's quickly open the slides. I'm using a different slides here, but I'm recording the session, so it will later be available. So you should be able to come back. So later on, you also gonna play a quiz game, which gonna assess you. It's just a nice quiz game whereby I need to find out whether you understood the content. It's very helpful in terms of reflection, and I hope it's fun for my previous other students. They do enjoy them quite a lot. So let's quickly go to chapter 11. So if you've covered this chapter, this is just going to be a reflection or a different perspective. So it's about fieldwork. In the textbook, you'll see that the slides that I'm using, they are actually outdated in terms of page numbers, but I'll reference the correct one. That is page 245. So on page 245, you will see it's about conducting the investigation. And like I've indicated at the beginning of the session, it's very important for us to always have a research proposal whenever we are actually working on any material here. So let me take you through the research proposal. Where are we at in terms of conducting the investigation? You'll remember you've got primary data and secondary data. So primary data, this is whereby you collect information data has to be collected. For example, you can use focus group, in-depth interviews. This is whereby you've got a qualitative study, or you can use surveys or observation. The difference here is that whether we communicate or we don't communicate with the participant or respondents. But surveys, you'll remember that we've got a list of different methods that were covered on, it should be chapter 7, whereby they talk about telephone interviews, web-based interviews, your emails, as well as your personal interviews there, or telephone, sorry, I've already mentioned telephone interviews, but I think you'll remember all those methods there. So it's about communication. And then with observations, basically, we've got structured, unstructured observations. I will reference the page number for that because I think that is something that it sometimes lacks when we give students an assessment and it regarding observation, and they tend to not to be sure what are the methods of different observations. So let's quickly reference a page number for different observation methods. So in the textbook, that is page 161. So let's quickly have that in our scrap book that we are doing here. Page 161. So you should just have that reference page at the back of your head in terms of different observation methods. So you'll see it's only two actually. It's not, you'll see in the textbook, you'll think like there's 5 or 10 of them. It's only two. It's either structured or non-structured. Is it direct or non-direct? So if you read through there, you'll see the differences and be able to actually put it in a correct format in terms of the research proposal there. So fieldwork comes in with the data collection. When you collect primary data, and then we read the definition of what is fieldwork, you will understand that in the research proposal, it comes where we discuss primary data. So first of all, they define fieldwork there. It says, is the process of collecting information outside of a lab, outside of a library of workplace settings. So in other words, we should be at the mall, we should be in the park, we should not be sitting at home while we collect this information or be in an office space. You'll see that it says it's a research work done in the field, out of office. This is an important aspect to differentiate which method of data collection methods we can say fieldwork applies or it does not apply. Remember, if you're gonna provide surveys, online surveys to the respondents, and then that is just a computer that is doing everything for you. You are not actually part of the interview process. So if we quickly go back here, because it's important to understand the term fieldwork in terms of the data collection methods. So if I quickly open chapter 7, just to take you back, you've got this diagram there. It illustrates for you all the data collection methods. So now in terms of primary data, you've got surveys like we've indicated, which means we're going to communicate with the respondents. We can either use personal interviews, which means we interact with the respondents, it's face-to-face, or telephone interviews, mail surveys, web-based surveys. So out of these 4 methods, you will see that there's only one method that actually applies to fieldwork, because if I'm going to use web-based surveys or mail or telephone, I won't be part of hiring interviewers that have to go and provide a questionnaire explaining questions. Everything, it's either it's online or it's over the phone and so on. So personal interviews and maybe a little bit telephone interviews, fieldwork applies there, but definitely not web-based surveys, because that is mostly a computer that is doing everything there. So when you talk about fieldwork, you'll also see that image that they are used here. This is actual fieldwork whereby they are actually interviewing the respondents. A good example of fieldwork that we can use in South Africa is the census survey, whereby they find the demographics as well as the population of South Africa, and then you'll see fieldwork there. So you will see on the next page, if you can highlight, we've got 4 important aspects of fieldwork. So The first one you will see it start on page 245 in the beginning of the chapter, as it is written number 1, planning the field work. On page 247, that's number 2, preparing the field work, and selecting the field work on page 248. And basically, we've got a lot of practical questions regarding that step. So maybe you can write NB in the textbook next to selecting and training of field works, especially where you've got those bullets on page 249 there talking about they must have communication skills, interpersonal relations, and so on. And then lastly, you've got training of field workers on page 250. So let's quickly go through each aspect a bit into detail. So in terms of planning or organizing the field work, which starts on page 245, what you need to highlight there, maybe it's on page 246 at the top of the page, which is similar to what you see on the slides, those bullets there, operator, sub-discrete, number of questionnaires, division of questionnaires per field worker, and so on. So basically, during these steps, what it means is that you are the researcher. You have developed the research proposal. The company has accepted your research proposal. So now you are collecting data. So let's assume that using a practical example, you are collecting data at TUT at main campus. It's about students that you are collecting. You will have to start by planning or organizing that fieldwork. You will do this step alone without any field workers or any someone's help. It will be a researcher's responsibility. So what you need there is operator sub-discrete. So there you list where you're going to collect the data. So we know main campus, for example, it can be divided into many sub-discrete. You've got the rest area, the cafeterias, you've got the fountains, you've got TP hall, you've got your sports grounds, and so on. So those could be your sub-discrete, including maybe bus stop where you plan to interview the students. Number of questionnaire per sub-discrete, you number them. We know that bus stop maybe is a busy area, then we can give it more number. If we have to interview 500 people, maybe we say 200 will be from bus stop because we know that is a busy area right there. Division of questionnaires per field worker. So it will also determine by the number of people that you're going to hire to help you. So if you've got hire 10 people to help you, those are field workers, then you can estimate that if I have to interview 500 people or 500 young adults or students, then each field worker must interview something like 50, and then it makes it 500. Daily quota, it's estimated on each day how many interviews should be completed. We talk about this in terms of a questionnaire a lot. We tend to indicate how long the questionnaire will take the it will take the respondents to complete the questionnaire. Normally we say 10 minutes, or it could be 10 to 15 minutes. So if you have to complete questionnaires per day, let's say you're working from 8 till 12 o'clock, it's just 4 hours, then you can estimate how many you can complete per day there. So it should just be practical. Stratification, once again, it's covered on the sampling plan, indicating the areas or the subgroups of the respondents. So stratification is more about the subgroups. For example, the study could be like we want to stratify that we want people from a certain age group, we want from a studying a certain course. For example, you can say we want those who are studying marketing, they should be at least 50% of the population, at least first years should be 20% and so on. So that's where you do stratification there. It's about the respondents. We're also going to cover or touch based on how you illustrate this method on chapter 13. That's where you draw your figures, whereby you talk about things such as percentages and so on. So it's just a normal table talking about frequency. Yeah, you usually use the frequency table to do that. Places of residence, these apply to the interviewers, which means basically if you are interviewing people at TUT and then those people don't have a place, maybe they are from Cape Town, where you can actually find those field workers as well as telephone numbers of contact points. So all this will be part of a fieldwork program. Normally a fieldwork program, it looks like a one-page document. So take it from the word program there. You know about the events program. It could be a wedding program or a funeral program. So it's usually similar to that. It talks about, a research one will talk about all these specific elements that you see there. And then you can see on page 246, they talk about 3 aspects as well that will influence what you write in terms of this practicality question. For example, each program will be different depending on the questionnaire and the subject. For example, if it's a sensitive subject, it might take longer in terms of the daily quota or the number of field workers. For example, if you're talking about things such as, could be disadvantaged background, it could be things such as disability, it could be things such as obesity and so on. So sensitive subjects, maybe you need to actually brief the respondents and so on. So it will be different than when you're collecting fast information or quantitative data. That could be something about consumer satisfaction. It might be easy to complete that. So it will depend on the questionnaire and the subject, the sample design, as well as field workers there. The next step on page 246, they talk about preparing. So in terms of preparing administrative requirements, so you'll also do this alone as a researcher. This is whereby you actually, it's mostly paperwork, if I use the term there, or admin work. So you ensure that you've got sufficient questionnaires. So if you look in the textbook, this will be on page 247. It's written in a paragraph format, so the slide provides you with the bullet point format, but all that information is there. You'll see in the first paragraph, they talk about you ensure that you've got sufficient questionnaires. Once again, you think out of the box, you make this as practical as possible. So if the study says the sample size is 500 students, sufficient questionnaires won't be 500. So you need to print a little bit more. Maybe 550 in case you make mistakes and so on, or you want to use others as pilot study. So you always print enough. The word sufficient does not mean equal to sample size. So you just put that at the back of our head every time there. Sufficient stationery, things such as pencils, pen, and so on. This will be used by field workers. Once again, if I take you back to the data collection methods, you will see everything that we talk about here in under fieldwork. It applies to personal interviews. So with web-based surveys, you won't actually have something such as fieldwork program or printing questionnaires and so on. So just keep that as well. The maps of a research area, TUT can provide us with that if we are conducting this research in a mall. We can request that from mall management as well. Official documents. This is an important part of preparing or administrative requirements. The official documents, for example, it includes a research permission letter. You will remember that when you prepare research proposal. So if we quickly go back to a research proposal guidelines and you go to the end of the research proposal, you've got ethical considerations there. And then which at some stage I find that there is some sort of lack of practicality that I see from a lot of assessments. So it's important that you become as practical as possible here. So for example, it talk about access. Access always refer to the premise. How are we going to access the premise where we interview the respondents? Or it could also refer to how we're going to access the data set. Remember, the data set, it could be online. Premise, it will apply to if we are conducting personal interviews. So the database could be emails, address, and so on. So going back to what this topic is about here, official documents, research permission letter. In our research proposal guidelines, when we indicate about ethical consideration, usually here we say things such as we will request permission from Tshwane University of Technology Management, so that we can collect data at the university campuses and so on. Or if it's a mall, you can say we'll request permission from a retail manager and so on, or we'll send an email. So you try and become as practical as possible whenever you do a marketing research proposal. So maybe we say we will contact the retail manager via email to request permission to actually conduct the research on a specific day and so on. So that is one good example of a permission letter, which becomes part of the administrative requirements that they are talking about here. And then you've got your file as well. So once again, planning and organizing as well as preparing, it's a responsibilities duty or researcher's responsibility. So you as a researcher, you'll be doing that without the help of a field workers. So let's come to the field workers, which is the next step, selecting. So this is when they only come in during the third step or the third aspect. Field workers are people or interviewers in other ways. So if you look on page 248, selecting, training, and controlling interviewers. Sometimes we use the word field workers, sometimes we use the word interviewers. So just take into account it refers to the same person or the same thing in marketing research context. So on page 249 there, you will see they talk about the task requirements, which it's important that you highlight there to determine the personal requirements of the field worker. So during this step, we are basically having some sort of interviews with people who are saying they're going to collect data for us. So personal requirements, these people should have things such as communication skills, interpersonal relations, and so on. I want to use another example here, which is trending on social media. I think it's Cape Town or Durban, Ayep, where they are hiring hosters, and then they provided their requirements for hosters, and then they talk about the body size and all those things, and people are commenting, and it's actually more about it's trending. So even when we hire field workers in marketing research, we also have some certain requirements that we require from these field workers or these interviewers. So they talk about communication. For example, if you read in the textbook, they should be good in terms of self-control, verbal, non-verbal communication, their interpersonal relations. You'll see they talk about they should get well with other people, be accepted by other people. So when you have a research proposal topic, most of the time it will influence the people that you're going to hire to actually collect data for you. So let's talk about the second one, interpersonal relations. It says they should get well with other people, be accepted by other people. So if we are conducting research at TUT, the study is about students, and we are asking students questions, it will make sense, or it's just good logic to hire another student to interview other students, because the student will be more accepted by other students. It also goes beyond that. If you're collecting data with a specific target group of people, for example, this is in rural areas, you do the same thing. You hire people who are actually able to adapt to situations, or they'll be accepted in such situations. So it will always depend on how you provide this practicality, and you will not always provide all of these requirements. So let's say it should usually be like 3 requirements that are mostly important in a specific topic. So if the topic is about, let's say it's about HIV and AIDS, and then you are interviewing respondents about their health, it's important that for the person that we hire to do these interviews must have some sort of sensitivity, for example. They must have some sort of emotional control. So it will depend on each scenario, but if you look on page 249 at the bottom, there's also other 4 you should highlight. In total, there are 12. So other important characteristics you'll see there, they talk about neutrality, motivation, patience, and honesty there. So you'll see those personal requirements there. Lastly, we've got training. Remember, we've already hired these 10 people. They've got, they meet this criteria. So now we must train them. On page 250, you've got training of field workers. And then you've got the 3 bullets that are written there as numbered 1, 2, 3. That's where you can highlight. When we train them, we make sure we provide them with a manual. We provide them with classes. Remember, there's difference between classes and field training that we need to take into account. Field training takes place at an actual place where we're going to collect the data. So if we're going to collect data at the mall or main lane, field training will be at main lane, going there, and then we do some sort of a pilot test there whereby we just conduct 5 interviews, and then we see if these respondents and these interviewers are actually eligible for what they are doing then. And then you've got the survey errors, which is the last thing that this chapter concludes with. And then you'll see those survey errors are on page 252. Once again, I need us to link these survey errors to our research proposal. Where do we put the survey errors? In a research proposal, let's quickly go there. You will see that we talk about number 5, sampling plan. This is chapter 10. And then when you discuss the sampling plan, basically on these guidelines, it says not required. So, but this is an individual question or a separate question, but sometimes you can put it in the research proposal. Actually, an overall research proposal should also have a sampling plan. At the end of the sampling plan, we talk about the survey errors and how those survey errors could be eliminated. We're gonna do some reflection on sampling plan because I think it's a very important aspect in terms of your assessment as well. So at some stage, we will just go back to the sampling plan into detail, but at the end of the sampling plan, it talks about those survey errors. So this topic actually, survey errors that you see on chapter 11, that's where you're going to put them. Respondent selection error, questioning error, recording error. In the textbook, you'll see at the bottom of page 252, you've got those bullets there. Respondent selection error, that's where we select the wrong respondents. This could be whereby we select someone who's older, but the research is about young adults, or it could be we select someone who's not a student, but the research is about students. And then questioning errors, they are done by field workers or interviewers. That's whereby we use words that are not contained in a questionnaire. For example, you think about things such as whereby NSFAS, in most cases, it talks about disadvantage background, but when you use the question disadvantage background, it means 2 different things, or it actually means more than one thing, because it's not about the background inside the house. It could be background in the community, the schools that you come in. So the questioning errors tend to be caused by interviewers using the wrong words to ask questions. Recording errors, that's where we capture the data, for example, on Microsoft Excel. Once again, things such as a web-based survey does not have recording errors most of the time because it captures the data automatically. So these recording errors are caused by field workers. Once again, they've written everything correctly on the questionnaire, but now when we put it on Microsoft Excel, those numbers, instead of typing 6, we type 9 by mistake and so on. And then you've got cheating errors caused by field workers, again, whereby they complete a questionnaire and say the respondents completed the questionnaire. The beauty of marketing research is that you've got reliability and validity. You can validate some examples of validating cheating errors. It could be something such as asking a question that is aligned with a different answer of a different question. For example, question 1 could be like, do you consume chocolates? And then question 9, indicate your preferred flavor of a chocolate. So there should be a match or a relationship between those questions. You cannot be a respondent and then it's answered, no, I don't consume chocolate, and then you indicate your flavor on another question. So there are various techniques that are used to avoid cheating errors. Let's quickly reference another slide or a page that is very important, because when you provide these errors, especially in assessment, you will see the assessment will say you have to actually identify errors that could occur, as well as provide suggestions of those errors, how they could be eliminated. On your recent test, so far, like I've said, I've marked my other group, but they've struggled a lot with the question whereby we ask for errors in a questionnaire and how they could be eliminated. So some of them students did not answer those questions, but it's important that we don't repeat the same mistakes. So if you get a question about survey errors and how can you eliminate them, it's actually on chapter 7. So if we quickly go back to chapter 7, you've got these errors again there. Chapter 8, not 7. Because that's where we discuss the questionnaire, the quantitative method. So yeah, on chapter 8, you will see that we've actually discussed these errors about survey. So these slides provide you with some sort of suggestions that you can use. So for example, they spoke about things such as cheating error. For example, you will see here it says cheating of interviewers, and then there's some suggestions. For example, if we proper train the interviewers, they wouldn't cheat, or we can decrease that level of them actually fabricating the answers. Supervision, it works beautifully, because most of the time people, when they are supervised, remember supervision is not just about a person watching you. It can also be about recording. For example, we are conducting telephone interviews, all the interviews are recorded. So it's part of supervision there. Things such as respondents refuse to participate, we can give them some sort of remuneration. This could be airtime, this could be a voucher, and then they tend to participate. But research ethics, they question this a lot. Just to put it back at mind or off our mind, if you give people a remuneration for participation, they tend to participate just for a reward, and they don't actually provide you with answers. They just give you wrong answers. It has been validated, it has been proved. So in most cases, it's not suggested. It should be entirely voluntary. But we do understand that at some stage you are taking their time, so you can offer it at some stage, but it shouldn't be a high value. For example, imagine they say complete a survey and then you get something such as 1,000 Rand. Everyone will want to participate, even if they don't have knowledge of what the research is about and so on. So we've got those guidelines there. And that brings us to the end of the theory part. So let's come back to reflecting on this chapter by doing a practical game or quizzes game. So today I'm going to introduce you to quizzes. If you are not familiar with it, it's a very fun game. It's actually nice to also reflect. You'll also see a scoreboard of how you are doing. If you have any questions, like I've indicated, feel free to unmute the mic and just ask right away. So let's quickly go back to our scrapbook here. So I'm going to provide these instructions. So I'm going to call it a learning activity 1. Actually, it's learning activity 11. And this learning activity was sent, there's a case study that I've sent yesterday for this class. So in that email, you've got the case study. So let's start by reading the case study, because the game is all about that case study. It's gonna take you 10 minutes to play the game. So let's start here and say, because it's a short case study, for 2 to 3 minutes. We read the case study just to do a reflection, as well as to understand. Read the case study. Okay, so if we quickly go back to emails, this is the email that I sent yesterday. you'll see it says attach find learning activity 11. So you can open your emails if you haven't read this case study, and if you click on it, it will open that case study that we're gonna be working on. So in the next 2 to 3 minutes, please read that case study. So let's put timer there. So we're gonna start the game at 2:40. So let's say read the case study regarding student daily schedule. You probably maybe seen it before. You can see it's just one paragraph. So once you have read the case study and understood the case study, you will join quizzes game. So I'm gonna start the game on my side. So if you follow with me on the screen, I will copy and paste the instructions. It's quickly, it's just a link, and then you provide the game code there. So it will only be active for now. You won't be able to access it afterwards. So I'm gonna quickly log in. So the game is about chapter 11, the case study, conducting the investigation. So it's just 9 questions that you will have there. So I'm gonna start it so that we can get those instructions and the game code. I'm gonna make it live. This will, as you play the game on the screen on my side and the one that we are sharing, you'll be able to see your name as well as your scoreboard. How you're doing in terms of the score. So it gives you 60 seconds to answer each question. So please don't rush to it because although you are timed, we will end the game, let's say exactly 10 to 4, we're gonna end the game. So these are the instructions. I'm gonna paste them now on the chat box. So what you need to do is to open a different browser. If you're in a computer or using a smartphone, you can open internet and then it says use any device, open join my quiz, and then you enter game code. And there is our game code. So I'm gonna quickly copy this and paste it in the chat box so you have it, especially for the game code. Is there remuneration for playing the game? There is no physical tangible remuneration, but you will be rewarded in terms of learning for that question. So yeah, there is some sort of remuneration, but it's not tangible or marks or money. So there is the instructions. You're just gonna go to that link, join my quiz, and then you enter the game code there. Use any nickname there to play the game. So for the best experience, if you are having a computer and your smartphone, it will be nice to play the game on a smartphone. It appears nicely. So as soon as I have participants here, I see you are joining. As soon as you've joined here, I'm gonna start the game. So I'll be quiet, but I'll be on this side. So feel free to ask any questions or any clarity. I just need you to focus on the game. So I'll meet you again when we end the game at 10:02. So you can join the game. So let me quickly mute myself now. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you're still playing the game, we're gonna give you like 1 minute more. So please try and play quickly because I'll have to end the game so that we can quickly have a reflection on what questions gave you tough time and how you answered them. So yeah, I'll end the game in the next 1 minute. So please try and complete it. All right, let's quickly see which questions gave you a problem. So I'm going to end the game so that we can see the report. Unfortunately, we can't see the report without the game being ended. So firstly, congratulations, Zakes, being number 1 there. Zakes, would you like to unmute the mic and thank your parents, your mom and dad for being number 1? Not really. Okay. So Uh, all right. So if we quickly review the question, thank you for that participation. Let's quickly see the ones that gave you incorrect answers, especially the one where we see red flags there. So you will see that mostly questions it's yellow, which means you understood the content and you were able to apply it correctly. But 2 questions, there were 3. Let's question 3. That's the first one. So let's quickly go to that question and just quickly see what the question was asking. It was saying, which important aspect of fieldwork are researchers considering when they estimate that each field worker should interview 15 students per day? So you will see only 1 correct answer, 9 incorrect there. So I think it's the very first step. This is where we are planning, for example, where we do that fieldwork program. But let's quickly see which answers you chose. 6 answers. 6 students or 6 players selecting or chose the answer selecting there. Only 1 player chose the correct one was planning. Remember, this is in the fieldwork program. It's daily quota basically, where we actually estimate how many interviews should be collected. Selecting, you just have to think about this is where we hiring, or this is where we actually doing interviews with the field workers. So this is where we talk about the personal requirements on selecting. So another red flag question, that was question 5. So if we quickly see what was question 5 asking, which important aspect of fieldwork are researchers considering when they write a letter requesting permission to visit higher education institution around Tshwane? So that will be that permission letter. Remember, that will be part of the admin, so I think it should be preparing. So let's quickly see what the memo says here. 3 players were able to choose the correct one, with 5 players choosing planning. So both of them, in a way, I would understand why you chose it like that. Both of them, it's still planning and preparing. So basically, the difference here is that with preparing, it's administrative. This is where we print questionnaires and so on. So it's mostly, yeah, administrative work or admin work. That is correct then. So lastly, I just want to indicate here my contact details for any further questions. So I'm Mr. S.G. Mashango, and my email address is mashango@tut.ac.za. You can also use that inbox that you have there on Brightspace. I respond to those messages there as well. And I'm not sure if you this group have a WhatsApp group. My other group, they have WhatsApp groups. I'm able to update them with anything regarding, including the marks as soon as I'm done and so on. So if you guys have a WhatsApp group, I'm not sure, maybe the admin or anyone in the WhatsApp group can just share a link for me via email so I can join the group and so that we can also have effective communication. But if you are in the other group for research, there is another group. I'm not sure if you are also included in the other group. That's why I communicate. That is still fine. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been fun. I hope it's also been fun from your side. So lastly, if you can just participate for me in the chat box there. With your any emoticon face that you have representing your mood, if you are happy or a smiley face or a sad face or an angry face, any mood that you have. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, it's my birthday today, so maybe happy birthday will do as well. Thank you, Funoko, for that, Futungo and Drovu for that participation. I'm gonna end the recording. It will be available for us to watch it later. So it's been fun. Have a lovely day and goodbye, ladies and gentlemen.